Welcome to another enriching episode of the Men After God podcast, the resource for those passionate about leading and growing impactful men's ministries. Today, we'll dive into strategies, share insights, and discuss tools to help you inspire and guide the men in your church and community. Let's embark on this journey together to build stronger ministries and foster authentic brotherhood among men.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Men After God podcast. Luke and I here having a great conversation that might get a little deep, which is important because we want to talk about the myth that men aren't interested in deep discussions. Luke, this is a stereotype we've got to address, man.
Yeah, it's painful because, especially I'm a social guy, so I like having a lot of conversations because I like to talk. I like to hear myself talk. I like to hear other people talk. I'm even a good listener. But I tell you what, there is a stigma of just the surface level. We're at church, kind of do our thing, and then avoid the deeper conversation. It's almost, I mean, if you've been to camp and you sit there with the fire, you're passing the stick around and maybe eventually it gets deep and people share some things you wish they hadn't, and then we throw the stick away and remember everything that was said and go tell everybody else about it.
We put that in our little box. We throw the box in the ocean.
Yeah. It doesn't work. And the thing is there's this stigma of, man, this is just awkward, or we're just going to avoid it completely. And I think we need to talk about it because the concept is men don't avoid deep conversations. They actually avoid shallow ones. And in avoiding the shallow conversations, it's impossible to go deep. No one starts out deep. If you go diving, you start at the surface and you go to the deep slowly and then you get there. But most of us aren't willing to be on the surface and actually ask the questions and listen to get there. And I think it's a great conversation. I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be challenging. And I would take this as you're listening to this today, look at yourself and say, okay, how many times am I having surface conversations that I'm really actually trying to avoid versus having the desire and putting the intentionality into something deeper? Am I willing to share and am I willing to listen? Because if we're not willing to do both, it's going to be difficult for us to have this conversation, and you'll walk away wishing that you would listen to the next podcast instead. So, and you should anyway, but that's okay. So.
That's right, man. And I tell you, this is definitely to our ministry leaders that are out there. The ones who are trying to get men to have discussions and things of that nature. You've got to know what you're getting into when you're trying to extract emotion and conversation from men. You've got to be able to read the room in a sense and know, is it okay to pull from this guy or to ask this guy a question, and know how to develop these relationships in the room and then outside the room to make the conversations in the room even better. Because you are bucking what's known as societal norms. Oftentimes men are painted as stoic and unemotional. They don't talk about feelings because it's weakness. There's some truth there. However, there's a huge lie. And the thing is, I think men are more than willing to have deep conversations because I've had them with them. But there's some things that need to be in place. There are men's talking circles that are emerging up in secular world where men are openly discussing their feelings, their mental health challenges that they're facing. And this goes against this whole idea. We want this to take place in the context of a gospel ministry. We want men to have the Bible and at the foundation of what they're talking about. And so that, again, it's God's word that's guiding them in life and helping them to bond together. Because deep conversation has great benefits and advantages to it. You get stronger bonds, you alleviate feelings of isolation. And honestly, there's no one in my life who has helped me better with this than Luke. And I know you hear me talking him up all the time with this stuff, but I attribute a lot of my own personal internal growth over the last year or 18 months to my friendship, my just bond that I have with Luke. And it's because we have been able to have some great conversations like this. So Luke, me looking to you as the subject matter expert here, talk to us for just a minute of what it's like having these conversations and getting men and making it okay for men to have these conversations with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll get you the check later on that. So enjoy. Yeah, it's one of those things. I was talking to my wife last night about this and just talking about how we connect with people. And I want to say there's a almost like a sixth sense to this. And it really comes down to the intentionality and people that have this intention of, hey, I want to connect deeper with the people I'm interacting with, they do connect deeper. And most of it comes down to, I want to get to know someone more, therefore I'm going to pursue it. And I'm gonna take this and make it awkward for a minute. Just when you're trying to date someone, so you go back to your relationship with your wife, you asked a lot of questions and you were real vulnerable and you shared things and you shared your music and your thoughts and your processes and your favorite things, your least favorite things, and the things you loved and things you hated. And there's just a lot of things you purposely push together to say, what do we have in common? And then over time, you are just in sync because they just know things about you that nobody else knows about you. And the more you get to know them, the more vulnerable you can be. And that creates a very deep relationship. And most people are not willing to recognize or intentionally pursue a connection, especially man to man, because the stigma is, I've got my wife and I don't need to have a relationship with another man. And yet we look at the Bible and we see a beautiful perspective. But look at the relationships of man to man in the Bible. David and Jonathan had a beautiful relationship that was based on connection and vulnerability and fear and faith and challenges and brotherhood. Well, you're a man after God and you're not alone. And so when it comes down to this, I'm not trying to say, well, you're a spiritual leader and you need to connect. You do, but your men need to have deep conversations, and they're going to have it. And really what it comes down to this, there is a foundation that you need to understand. And I'm going to take it from a book I'm reading, but the concept is the people that you want to have a deeper connection with, you want to have a deeper conversation, they need to feel something. And I know you're like, man, I hate this feeling conversation. Love languages, blah. It's important. And you have feelings too. You may not know how to explain them, but they're there. You got to feel what you got to feel. And to get deep, you have to be in a place. If I'm an individual that needs to be able to share something, to go to have a deeper conversation, it doesn't have to be deep, dark. It can just be more depth than, hey, how you doing? How was your week? Good to see you. See you next week, right? You want to have a conversation. There's going to take time, intentionality, but really it comes down to, do they feel safe? Do they feel like they can trust you with the information they're going to give you, no matter what it is, right? And do they feel that they have a future with you, where your future's aligned? And sometimes we just think, just because we go to the same church, we're at the same Bible study, we're the same, serving the same ministry maybe, that doesn't mean they feel those things. There's a foundational aspect of it, and you have to be intentional, and it's called belonging cues. And it's the conversation of, you're willing to share, you're willing to be vulnerable, you're willing to look to the future and have conversations. But most people don't get a belonging cue from, hey, how you doing? Good to see you, during shake hands time to the 10 seconds at church in the song service. It's not enough. That time is going to be more questions, more open dialogue. It's not going to be monologue. It's going to be dialogue, which is multiple voices pouring into. And I will say this, your resource here is going to be really good questions. Don't play 20 questions. Play 5 questions. Play the 5 correct questions. Take it in a place where, as you're dealing with the questions I'm looking for, and by the way, Dustin is a master at asking really, really good questions, really deep questions. And I'm going to put him on the spot. So I'm going to warn him now. What are those questions? And you say, man, and Justin's like, I'm not a connector. No. He's a master connector because he knows how to get people talking. So what we want to do is have these like, hey, how am I going to get more? And Dustin has a few, like, hey, what made you laugh this week? What made you cry this week, right? And a lot of it is just shared connection that allows you to go to a deeper level of, hey, what are you dealing with this week? I want you to think for just a moment. When is the last time you shared with another man the battles that you're really facing right now? We see these memes pop up on Facebook, and I think they're hilarious because of how true they are, where men only have one thing on their mind, and then it shows all the things that are on men's mind. How can I provide this week? Is my wife, are my children taken care of? Can I pay the bills next week? What am I going to do about this? We have a lot more on our mind, and yet everyone thinks we only have one thing on our mind because that's the stigma, when in fact there's so much more. And so I'd say, hey, if you haven't shared what you're dealing with somebody, and I'm not saying you need to share it with all the people in church. It's not a gossip session. You don't need to give them all the skeletons in your closet, but you want it to take the reality of, if you're not willing to say, hey, I'm fighting a battle right now, would you pray for me about this specific battle? And maybe it's relational, maybe it's a personal sin, maybe it's pornography, you're dealing with a battle, whatever. And I'm not saying, if you're a ministry leader, you got bigger problems than that. If you're dealing with pornography, let's talk about that. Yeah. But my point is this: if you're not willing to say, hey, I've got a battle. My pastor does it with me. He's so encouraging. He'll be like, hey, would you pray with me about this specific thing? I'm burdened about it. And sometimes we'll get together and he'll just pour his heart out and be like, hey, this is, and he's not sharing things he shouldn't share with me, but what he's doing is opening up so that I can also say, hey, pastor, I'm going to pray with you on that. And I do. And by the way, you know what I do with him? I open up like, hey, here, I feel you, but here's my battle. I don't mind sharing my battle because we're at a deeper level. We're not on the surface anymore. Do you want to go deep? You're going to take it intentionally, but it's going to take that understanding like, hey, we share a future together. We talk about the future, and now we can talk about the now. So kind of take that. Dustin, I know you got a lot more to go in, but I want to hear from you. You've got some questions. You always are just kind of like prodding out. Give us a few.
Absolutely. So when it comes to questions, you've got to, most people ask the wrong questions. And when I was an air traffic controller and I was training, there was a guy named Bob Smith. Yep, that was his name. But I'm not even making this up. This is to protect the innocent. His name.
Yeah, you guys can
Bob
Google
Smith,
his name, look it up. I guarantee you can find him and about 27,000 other Bob Smiths.
Absolutely, yeah. But he was an older controller and one of the last warrant officers in the field, and probably should have retired 5 years before I got there. But just a guy that knew everything about ATC, especially at that station, and such wisdom. And I look back now and I realize what he was doing. I didn't appreciate it at the time. Of course, do we ever, right? Especially I was 19, 20 when I met him. And he used to, we would come to him, we would ask questions or we'd talk about something and he would answer us. And he would say, but you didn't ask me the right question. What? And then this was the air traffic control field. So we would be asking about how to handle a situation or a technicality on some of the writing and the 7110 as it's called. And I could see him. He had a cup of coffee and that finger and he'd be like, but you didn't ask the right question. What do you mean didn't ask the right question? Guys, a lot of the reason you're not getting men to talk to you in your small groups and things of that nature is you're not asking the right questions. The first thing I want to say is the stigma out there and the myth of men not wanting deep conversations is because painting with a broad brush, there's some truth to it in that men don't want to just open up immediately. Most of us don't. We don't walk around with our hearts on our sleeves. We take some time to you got to date me a little bit. Okay. You got to buy me some popcorn and a movie and take me out and wine and dine me. Okay. Then we'll have a conversation. I told someone one time, I said, get me around a fire and give me 30 to 45 minutes and we'll have some deep conversations. But in the first 15 to 20 minutes, I'm still trying to figure out who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing there. And if it's okay to even have these conversations. When it comes to the questions to ask, you can see this with your children. If you're asking a question with a simple answer, then you're going to get a simple answer. Most of us don't think beyond what we need to think about. If someone asks me, how is your day going? Well, what's an acceptable answer? Good. And that answered your question. You got the answer. You got the answer to the question you asked. Don't ask how the day is going. Hey, man, what was something that made you smile today? And then do this, because guys like me, you got to learn something. You got to shut up. And you got to give space for someone to respond. When you go into a meeting with a men's group, don't let the first thing that comes out of your mouth is, okay, guys, how's everybody doing today? Good. Okay. All right. Great. Awesome. Well, we're going to get in our Bibles, jump in there and just say, hey guys, tell me something that was really great that happened in the last 2 weeks. Hey, what's your favorite? It's these icebreaker type questions, if you will. Have those. And then as you're asking questions, use certain words. Most, best, greatest, worst, most vile, disgusting. Give good adjectives and descriptors for what you're looking for. Because if you ask someone, hey, tell me about a fun time, they've got 11 fun times in their head they've got to go through in order to get you an answer. And they're going to have to think too much. Hey, tell me the most fun you've ever had when you were in school. Oh man, me and my buddies this one time. And here you go. So ask the right questions. Look up group facilitation. And you'll study that a bit. We're putting together some materials on that. But check that out. That's how you're going to get guys to talk. And Luke said something about how we only have one thing on our mind, but you see these thought bubbles. Because here's the thing. Even the one thing that most men are said to have on their mind, there's a deeper cause. There's a deeper root and issue as to why that's even on their mind. There's a something in your heart that's making you concerned over, are you providing? There's something in your heart about looking for intimacy with a woman. There's something in your heart about worrying about the relationship with the kids and everything else that's going on. So I've talked for a long time, but I do want to point out the American Psychological Association did find that people, including men, benefit from these deep and meaningful conversations. But guys, don't start out with the deep. Don't walk in and be like, okay, guys, I want you to tell me the deepest sin you have in your life right now. I'm going to get up and walk out because I don't know who you are and I'm not going to trust you. And then when you get into those, you've got to read the room. I was telling Luke before we got on here, I was in, I'm not going to say where, but I was at a place and someone was teaching, and they were teaching teenagers, and that's a special skill in and of itself. But I have never sat in a room where less people were paying attention to the speaker than this particular room. The only thing that was going well was that they were not interrupting him or throwing anything at him. Most of them were leaned over, sleeping on their phone, or a slight goofing off that some other leaders were having to help out with, but they weren't like audibly booing this guy off the stage. But it was, you could tell there was nothing. And then he had no concept of how to connect with his audience. And that was something he's got to learn. I commend him for even being up there public speaking. Most people don't even do that. But you've got to read the room, because some guys will open up easier than others, but you can't push the ones who won't. If someone doesn't want to open up and you start pushing, you're going to get a wall, you're going to get hit, and you're going to hurt the relationship. And so read the room, but ask the questions. Start with some fun ones and then kind of work your way into them, because you've got to create, I know we can make fun of this word, and Luke may have mentioned it a little earlier, you got to create a safe space. Hey guys, apologize for that technical difficulty, but to get back to the conversation, you got to create a safe space. Now, as Luke, one of the things that's different between you and I think you might be about to surprise me right now. We do have a different past. And I got a question for you, put you on the spot here. Have you ever been in a bar?
Oh, yes. I'm not actually being sarcastic. I actually have multiple times been in a bar.
If you can't see my face because you're listening to the podcast, you should go to YouTube so you can see the shock on my face right now. I don't know. I do have this funny image right now of Luke setting up a table like that girl in Peanuts, like the therapist is in, little 5-cent things, he's getting his bar tab money. But what I'm getting at is, guys, if you've ever been to a bar and you've sat there for a period of time and you get a guy near you and he kind of starts drinking, he looks at you like, so what are you doing here? Or you start trying to talk to anyone after a few's in them, they feel safe, or they're so drunk they don't know what to feel, so they just talk. I've always hated being around drunk people because they just vomit all over you. Not literally sometimes, but I'm speaking figuratively right now, with their words and their feelings and their emotions. But they feel that they can. You want to create a space where someone feels that they can do that. You're going to do that by first opening up yourself. You got to set the precedent. Say that it's okay. You've got to share your personal vulnerabilities. I was in a meeting with some pastors and his men this last weekend, and one of the things that I told them is, if you want a space to where men feel supported and safe, you've got to be willing to make yourself feel unsafe by sharing vulnerable things first, and then let them come along that conversation with you. But that goes back to what you were saying earlier, Luke. Guys can feel safe with no future together, and like we'll talk, we'll communicate. There might not be depth, or some of us could be like, I'm never going to meet this guy again. I'll say whatever I want, but the other side, the toxic side, is we have a future, but I don't trust you. Because that trust is the foundation of relationship. So how do we cultivate trust in a men's group, for a group of men to be able to have that sort of conversation?
Yeah, I would say follow through is one of the most crucial things you can do. And because again, a lot of times we want to have depth in the first 15 minutes of someone we just met. It's not going to happen. You need to connect with someone that you just met, not try to go deep with them. You go deep with someone after you've built a foundation of the relationship, which is based on trust. I know who they are. I know what to expect. I know the follow through. I know the story. But so let's just take it, for instance, you meet someone new, you're going to connect with them. Just connect. But man, if you want to get into the depth with them of getting to know them, it's going to take a different setting potentially. But a lot of it is going to be based on, hey, you said this last time. Tell me more about that. Hey, you have a wife and kids. Tell me about your kids. Now, that's all. He's like, man, that's surface. We avoid the surface, right? Because, it's just, what? No. People want to have deep conversations, but have to start on the surface. One of the things that my pastor is just a master at is following up on the previous conversations that we've had. Hey, how's this going with this child and this? How is this? I know you've got this going on, or maybe it's a very much, hey, I don't know what's going on. Can you help me understand? Tell me what's going on here, or how can I pray for you? Right. One of the things you can do in a group setting when you're trying to break the ice and go deep is you want to find out three things. What makes a man laugh? What makes a man cry? What does he pray about? If I can, if I can know those three things, I can go deep. So when a men's ministry setting, I want to broadly say, hey, what are we praying about? How can I pray? How can we pray for you? And maybe they don't want to share the depth, but I'm going to pull like, hey, don't share details, but tell me something I can pray about generically. And a lot of times, like, man, pray for finances, pray for job, pray for whatever it is, relationship. You're going to get it like, okay, there's more under the surface, and there always is more under the surface. You want to know the secret to getting depth in a men's ministry? Start praying for your men about what they give you, and then follow up and just say, hey, I've been praying about this. I've been serious about this. And by the way, don't lie to them. Pray about it, because what God's going to do. And by the way, I know we don't need to say that, but we need to. How many times have I'm going to pick on me for a minute, said, yes, I'll pray about that. And then I might think about it. And most of the time I might not. You say, man, that's so dishonest, Luke. I'd never do that. Well, you are better than me, because I've been a part of Baptist church. I've done it a long time. A couple weeks ago, I was talking to my pastor, surface setting for your church. And he came up and said, and I was like, hey, how can I pray for you this week? And I do that with him consistently. And he's like, hey, I'm really burdened about this specific thing. Would you pray for me? Now, here's the sad thing, Dustin. We've been praying as a church about this thing for months, almost a year, right? I've been praying with him for a little bit longer. And my heart was struck. I was like, whoa, I've prayed for it more than once, but I have not bothered God about it. I have not been annoying about it. I've not been tenacious about it, because it was important to me, but not as important enough to make it a priority. I tell you what, convicted as I was, I have given 10 minutes a week to that specific thing. You say, only 10 minutes. It's more than I was doing, right? To that very specific thing. Baby steps, right? Now, here's the thing. I'm now able to connect with my pastor on a deeper level. Like, hey, pastor, I prayed about this. I prayed about it the 10 minutes. I just wanted you to know I'm praying for you in this. There's a connection that happens there. I've done that with other friends. I've had friends who follow up with me since my wife has passed away. I have a friend in Portland that texts me about once a month. We prayed for you and your family today. They pray for me on a Saturday once a month and let me know about it. And you know what I know? I can share anything with that guy, because he knows that there's still pain and healing. You say, man, all of this to say, you want to create an environment in which someone starts to trust you. And, hey, you need to follow through on what you've already communicated about and ask some more questions on what don't go deeper until you've dealt with what's on the surface. And then you have permission to go deeper. I know that's rough, but the concept is the follow through of the conversation you already had via text message, via phone call, via at church. Hey, I've been praying for your job. Any updates? How can I pray specifically? You'd be amazed at how many people start to open up like, oh man, this person actually cares, because you do.
You know, Luke, I think I'm going to save the best for last real quick, because you just said something I got to bring up. You said permission, and it made me think. Oftentimes, we don't ever ask permission to go deeper. We don't ask permission to share something. Men often say things, we do things, and we're not asking permission. By nature, I think most men don't ask for permission. There's a reason we say it's better to ask forgiveness than permission, right? I tell people I've got a little bit of rebel in me. I recently was talking to someone, and he shared something with me, and he said, yeah, but you can't take that away from this guy. And it was in a context of a professional environment and a working relationship. And when he first tells me about what was going on, I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, let me see how this goes, whatever. But then he told me I couldn't take it away. Now I want to take it away.
Hold my root beer.
Hang on a second. Watch this, right? We just got a little bit of rebel in us. And that comes across in our communication sometimes. But one of the easiest ways, men, for you to be vulnerable with your men is to give them the power over the conversation. Hey, can I share something with you that's really important to me? Or, hey, would it be okay if I ask you kind of a personal question? And do it in a group setting. Man, before we get started tonight, I want your permission to ask some deep questions. Would you be willing to answer some deep questions tonight? And if you can't see me, I'm looking around the room like I'm actually looking at men here. But the concept's there. Look at them in their eyes and ask permission to do this, because what you've just done is you've given them the power, because they can look at you and say, nope, ain't happening. Don't talk to me about this. 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, yeah, you can. Go ahead. I learned this when my pastor had to address a Sunday school teacher he'd inherited in a church plant. The Sunday school teacher was teaching some things that were contrary to what he believed and how the church was as doctrinally. And he was needing to have a hard conversation with this gentleman. He's an older gentleman, loves the Lord, been faithful for 2 times as long as I've been alive, and longer than my pastor had been alive. And he called some other pastors to try to figure out. And one pastor said this to him. He said, don't go in making statements, because statements build walls, but questions build bridges. And when we ask permission to go deeper, to have those types of conversations, when we're giving our power and authority away to the other person. So guys, it's not about us, it's about Jesus. So give the authority away, give the power away, and put it in their hands, because they're going to respond well. Because honestly, this is a myth. Guys love deep conversations. We like talking about sports. Luke loves screaming, "Go Sports, go" at a golf match. But, you're not wrong. We don't hate deep conversations. We hate meaningless conversations. We hate pointless conversations. What men love is truly spending time with another man in brotherhood, sharing one another's lives, journey and struggles together. The only way we're going to break this myth is if we're actively trying to do it. So my encouragement to you this week, go find a guy and have a conversation with him. Maybe it's someone you've already got a surface relationship with, and you can ask to go a little deeper. Maybe you need to get into your men's group and say, hey guys, I heard a podcast I want you to listen to, but tonight I want to go a little deeper in our conversation. And even better, would you be okay if we went a little deeper in the conversation? Because until we're able to actually get to the heart of the matter with men, we're never going to be able to see the heart transformation in men. Guys, I've had a great conversation. I love talking with Luke about this. We could go so much deeper. Yes. Come on, these are easy ones. I gotta take them when I can. All right, guys. Yes, I should get a sound effect in here. Yeah. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for listening today. Make sure you share with a friend. Tell them about us. We're excited about the growth of Men After God. Look for us at different conferences, and we'll be talking about them as they're coming up. Go check out Men of Valor Ministries. You come back on to our podcast in April, the first day of the week, which is Monday. There we go. Work day, Mondays, Bible studies led by Eric Stewart from Men of Valor Ministries. Huge fan of his, a good friend of mine, and I'm looking forward to you hearing his voice. We will talk to you next time.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Men After God podcast. We hope today's discussion has encouraged and equipped you on your journey. We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions, comments, or would like to partner with us, please reach out at support@menaftergod.net. Stay connected with our community by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/menaftergodpodcast. For deeper engagement, join our group at facebook.com/groups/menaftergod and connect with other men pursuing God's heart. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback helps us reach more men striving to live faithfully. Until next time, stay strong in the faith and continue pursuing after God.